Okay, hello Eveline. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi,
Let's
Mauro.
start. Let's start. Let me start asking you where you were born and where you live right now, and maybe some story that connect these two places.
So I'm from Munich originally, a town in the south of Germany, Bavaria. Grew up in the outskirts in a small village, a bit of a Pippi Longstocking upbringing. So with the horse and the dog and the cat, huge gardens and forests, lakeside, and am
And
living
Oktoberfest.
mostly.
Munich is the Oktoberfest city, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, this year, unfortunately, not. It was cancelled as last year due to COVID. But next year there will be Oktoberfest again. So yeah, it's definitely also a beer city. And yeah, but partly moving back and forth and spending time in Istanbul, so Turkey, which is well, I think 10 times the size of Munich. Rather no forests, and instead of the lakesides, the sea, and both very beautiful, very different cities. In my opinion, great combination. Munich very organized, big business in both places, great food in both places, lots of art, museums, all kinds of theaters, concert halls. So it's a good combination to be in both places.
Cool. And like having lived in these two very different cities, so having a perspective, having these two different perspectives, would you say, how do you look at the world? Do you think it's getting better or it's getting worse? How do you see the world that we live in and how it's moving?
I actually think that world is getting better. I think that people do a lot for the world getting better. This doesn't mean that each and every human being individually gets to have a better life. That's not what I'm saying. But in general, I think we do have the energy to improve the world we are in. And you, I mean, if you see, what has been done to combat poverty, to have give more access, especially to girls to education. Still long path to go, but really big steps have been taken. The same counts for environmental questions, which I know it's a very difficult topic, and I know there's a long path to go, but still, I think that we are on the right track. And in general, I think that humans are good actually. So as a species, I think we are on a good path. I'm very positive about the future.
No, I agree. It's great to hear. I agree with you. Like, and if you look at whatever metrics, right, you can choose the metrics. Like you said, even in the environment that so many people have so many fears and concerns, it's very hard to pick a metric and not seeing that it has evolved over the last 100 years, right? So like all the topics that you said, from poverty, like 99% reduction in poverty over the last 100 years, and the metrics goes on and on and on. And then maybe the question is, so I think there are two questions that arise. um, why we are still so afraid, so or why the perception that, why is so widespread, the some perceptions that no, the world is not, it's not getting better. So like it's difficult to cope with these metrics, or we it's a matter of time frame, right? We are if you take small windows of time, then maybe it's getting worse. So how do you see this? Why this optimistic perspective is not more widespread, or no, maybe I'm wrong and it is. So how do you see this?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons. I think one of them, as you said, I mean, a short time like now the COVID pandemic, obviously things got a lot worse for all of us, each and everyone. I mean, everybody knows someone who got really sick, people who died, people who lost their jobs, you know, lots of really negative things. But as you said, if you look long term, it's a very positive development. The thing I think influences a lot is that most news we get, and it doesn't matter where, in which country, are bad news. We normally don't get too many good news on a daily level. You know, all the big publications, TV broadcasting, it's all about catastrophes, outbursts, people dying, terrorist attacks. So a lot of people who consume a lot of media, and this obviously depends a bit on what kind of media, but kind of grow into this consciousness that everything is getting worse, and then, you know, it's a dangerous place to be. So I think this is part of the story. And then I think, as you said, fear also grows in certain cultures more easily than in other cultures. So I think we, you know, if you see the enquests in a number of countries, how positive or negative feel about their future, you have areas where, although people are very well off, and as an example, in this case, take Germany again, it's very organized country, you know, very wealthy country, a good kind of education, public education system. And still, if you ask people, a high number of people, I say, oh, we fear for our future. And if you start asking why, there's no real reason they give. It's like, you know, because the environment is going worse and the economy is going worse, and you know, at the end of the day, we will die anyways. So I think it's a bit out of this. So we should emphasize on more on the positive side of, you know, what has been done, what can be done, what are the really positive aspects, and this from childhood on, you know, in the schools, in the media. So yeah, I think it's a bit about this.
Yeah. Then, and you know, my next question is, what are the big challenges that you see ahead, so we continue to improve? But I will even maybe ask if this is one of the challenges, right? To increase our perception that things are so not to increase our perception, but to how to cope with this difficulty to be more positive, and to see the things that are going well, But yes, the question would be, what are the challenges that you see ahead moving forward?
Well, I think first of all, it's education and building a stable, you know, positive world for the kids. I think this is, you know, we have a huge number of refugee kids, for example, worldwide at the moment. So this will be a huge topic to somehow develop programs to get these kids into a stable situation, to get them into schools, obviously kindergartens, universities, and to give a very positive perspective for them to create their own future. I think this is one of the, you know, main topics, the main things we can do worldwide to increase this positiveness, but also because obviously we need these kids to one day run the world. So I think this is education is the main point, and giving a perspective or creating a perspective. I don't know the exact number, but I mean maybe for example from Venezuela, I think it's around 60% is under 20 from the refugees, and we here in the region have the same thing. I mean, people coming from Syria, from Libya, Afghanistan. It's a big number of them are underage kids. So we have to create a certain environment for them to grow in a stable way, in a positive way, to then be able in all the countries where they move to continue going in this path.
And from things that I read, having this background in biology, and I tend also to look at things and kind of go back to the biological algorithm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how it looks like our brain is made never to let us be completely happy, but also never to let us be completely miserable. And we have all these mechanisms of short-term reward, right? It's like dopamine going here and there, and
Yeah.
endorphin, and things like this. So even in a very difficult situation, like a kid in a refugee camp, everyone experiences moments of happiness. And even like you said, if you are in Germany, in a country with a very good basic quality of life and wealthy country and everything, people can still feel somehow miserable, or at least with bad perspectives about the future. And um, how how do you see this impacting in well, in this future, in a world where today we still have so many refugees? So what do you have any experience, or any contact with this challenge of keeping positive, and for these populations, or in these countries?
You mean like personal experiences? I mean, here, for example, in Istanbul, you can see it every day because we have a lot of refugees on the streets, also kids living by themselves on the streets. And in Germany, there are refugees, but in very different conditions. I think, as a general thing, you just really have to open perspectives. And I come from originally from arts background, so you are from the biology background. I'm originally from the arts background, and then went into IT. I still think that one of the best things you can do is open paths through creativity. So be it liberal arts, music, whatever people need to express themselves. And if you can give these facilities and open, people also can deal with their fears, especially kids, but also grown-ups. We sometimes, don't want to show fear. And some people hide behind this fear. And to break these walls, I think best thing you can do is or sports and move, or something creative. So I think that would be a great path to move forward and open more of these paths. I mean, education at the moment, and also our focus, since it's so money driven, is often neglecting this a bit. I mean, it's who's the most earning artist, or who's not, but the real background and the real story about it sometimes gets forgotten. And I hope that now with the reopening after these COVID lockdowns, that this will be a bit more of a focus point also for everybody to get back into these cultural topics and arts and creating really things. I mean, as you said, you want to create more content. So this really this creation, I think, helps people a lot. It's something very that gives a very positive spirit and positive feeling if you created something yourself.
Yes, and and even though, so what I'm thinking now with what you're saying is, we have, um, yeah, we have to put our biology to work, right? Either our
Yeah,
body and exercise it, and our brain with and exercising it, which is to be creative, right? Is
yeah,
the and the good thing about it is that you don't need a lot to do any of those two things, right? To express, to create things with your mind, you need very little, and to create things, and to exercise your body, that also has an impact in your creative potential. You also don't need a lot. Like, you can be in a refugee camp and probably do both. It has bigger challenges, but at the same time, technology is making it easier to bring tools, right, for
yeah,
people to get access to content, and to share content,
yeah.
even if you are in these challenging situations of a refugee camp, or anything.
Yeah,
Um,
technology is a huge enabler. I mean, that's part of why I really am such a big fan. I mean, it's enabling such a lot of people to do such a lot of things that even a few years back it would be unthinkable to provide. But what I was referring to, I mean, I don't know, have you heard of Francis Ellis? He's a Belgian artist, but residing since a long time in Mexico. And he, for example, did a football, soccer related piece, so a video. He went to Iraq, embedded, and it's during Daesh ISIS times, there was no football, soccer, no volleyball, nothing with a ball involved permitted. But he filmed this group of kids playing football, soccer with no actual football. And it's so moving when you see the faces of the kids and how excited they get about, having a goal. And you see, how do they know they have a goal? Because there's no ball involved. And this is what I mean. If people get excited, if they see they can run, they play, then, I mean, even if the ball is missing, you see what they get out of this. It's an incredible piece of very
wow.
well art.
I will
Very
find it
moving.
and put on the description of this episode, because, and like, I'm feeling touched while you're talking about it. I didn't know it, and but and
No,
it could
I
be interesting how, because you can look at it and think how sad it is that kids cannot play soccer, and at the
hmm,
same time how amazing and how hopeful is that, even in this very extreme situation, they find that there's a creative, the mind allows them to experiment and to create a new way and expressing, and even of having fun and
yeah.
enjoying with the simulation of a goal.
No, I was I'm a big fan of his work, anyways. But I'm working with football, soccer players, and I try to explain, how to involve younger players to these professional football players from first league players and some of the clubs. So I showed this work, and also their reaction was really nice. Because they train every day. They obviously earn their money playing football, soccer, but they still can relate, because when they're on the field, they have the same energy, and the same spirit to really, just give their best and want to win. And it's fantastic. I'll send it to you.
So how can you how do you connect the things that you are doing professionally with this challenge? You actually mentioned just one challenge, right? This of education. Is there a connection of what you are doing with this big challenge of educating more kids to to run the world in the future?
Well, I try my best with my own kids first of all, on a very small scale. And I guess if you ask them, they'd have a very different answer from what I'm saying. But on a larger scale, I just really, try to involve, to see all the aspects and to open doors with all my clients and all the people I'm working with, and to share opinions and to share possibilities, be it on a professional level or a personal level, where you can improve, where you can involve certain projects. We are a non-profit organization, but still can always, come back on these. Also, I give workshops at 2 universities, which also involve groups from emerging countries. Well, we work a lot in emerging countries, so it's a bit of coming and going, and also with some of the governmental programs. Germany has quite a few programs to support education, especially for younger kids, and especially in crisis and war zones. So this is a bit, I try at least to, give the small steps that I can. But
Okay.
besides this, I think from a certain age on, obviously you connect more or less everything you've done. Like for me, I studied arts, I started working in arts, then, I moved into fairs and exhibitions, then a long time with Microsoft and some governmental work. Now a bit of a focus on sports people, so a lot of football, soccer. So you have, obviously, with more experience, you have, well, bigger network, but also more possibilities to connect the dots and to sensibilize and raise topics in different audiences, and communicate on different levels. So it doesn't matter if it's, a startup, or if it's a big corporation, or if it's a club, or individual player, or a CEO, or a student who needs counseling. So I think that's the big advantage if you've been in different environments, and obviously also deal with different cultures. As you said before, it's different ways of looking at things in different cultures also.
Okay, I want to pick on something you said now, like, so this challenge of communication, because this is it's one of the big, it's of course connected with education, is connected with the perception of the world that we get through the media. But like you said, how do you see, okay, let me rephrase. My mind sometimes goes faster than my mouth. But the way you just said, the way you just listed things that you did, it's and this competence or ability that you acquired of communicating with different people, different cultures, and how do you see the perspective of improving this communication in the world? Because what I see now, this is one of the challenges that I see. We are in a world so polarized, right?
Yeah.
And take politics, take maybe the biggest challenges that we have, one of the challenges that I see ahead is how to improve communication. And let me give you an example that I'm involved. Um, I work with biotech. I work specifically creating genetically modified organisms that are that we have the intent are going to help the world, right? In our case, is to fight invasive species. Um, but there is so much prejudice against GMOs. It's so complicated to even start a conversation, a productive conversation with anyone, because before you even start, you have to go over a barrier of bias or prejudice before you can even start proper communicating what you want to communicate. And you can extend this to political views, to democracy, to so many other things. So like having worked in all these cultures and these environments and having developed this ability, what would you say are the now how can we improve this communication to so people can communicate better and maybe settled, not to have so much conflict and polarization?
Well, I think that the most important part would be listening. That's something that's missing a bit, and that is the first step. So not talking and not trying to explain, but really listening. And then I think, especially if you say, coming from the not biotech are already all in this COVID stuff. It's to make information more accessible to people. So at the moment, sometimes very specialized, very specific language is used, and people, we are going back again to this topic of fear and getting scared. They don't really understand. They get scared, and then they say, no, 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 we don't even want to, know about this because this is scaring us. So just stop with this topic. It's a bad thing. So it's you need to kind of translate into the language that the people you want to communicate with are speaking usually. So it's for example, sometimes if you talk to a doctor, people do not even understand what their own doctor is telling them, because he is talking to the patient as he would be talking, to another doctor or the nurse. But some of the patients don't understand what he's actually saying. So you always have to think about the audience. How do you have to address them? How do you have to talk to them? Through which medium, obviously, is the same. If you see Twitter, which I love, but it's a kind of a bubble, obviously. You get the impression that, well, more or less everybody's on more the same level of education and with more or less the same backgrounds, although from different cultures, but, all very connected and all very tech savvy, though that's not the reality. That's only a small percentage. So you really have to get to know your audience, with whom you want to communicate. And the first step is really listening to whomever you want to address. Really listen and keep listening to their fears and what they are saying, and then, prepare accordingly, or choose someone in between to talk and communicate, and take small steps if it's necessary. And I think this got a bit lost. It's the Trumpism, too much talking. The louder you shout, the more important people feel they are. So this is very necessary that we go a step back again and listen first and really care about whom we are talking to.
How is these small steps? Okay, not how. What I personally experience many times is some frustration with the small steps. I agree with you that because of this asymmetry of information in between who is speaking and or listening and who is talking, like in between the interlocutors, we should aim for small increments of information, small successes, right?
Mhm.
And but the sensation that the feeling that I have is that in this very fast moving world that we don't have so much time for these small steps. And let's think of students, for example. We sometimes want them to, wow, get a lot of information, in a week, in a month, or you
Mm.
need to learn this and that, or you need to accomplish this by that deadline. And um, many times the world, sometimes it's just you. Oh, I wanted things to go faster, but
Mhm.
sometimes the world doesn't allow you for these small steps. And in many of the discussions that I take part, this is a huge source of frustration, because
Mhm.
yes, we know that small steps is the way to go when there is this huge asymmetry of information, or this very different realities and cultures, and we need like to move very slowly into knowing each other, and but we don't have the time. So like, how how do you navigate through these small steps? Because I know you advise people in very different countries, right? And countries with history of cultures with not a history of collaborating to each other. So how it is um, to respect all these differences, but at the same time to advance in creating common grounds, and in the end doing business with making the parts negotiate and reach consensus agreement or a deal.
Yeah, this depends a bit. I mean, if you need to move a big step very quickly because of business reasons or negotiations reasons, you'll do that. But if you want to involve a lot of people, you always really keep them informed about every single step you do. And it's a bit like learning a language. If you skip the basics, you will never really get fluent in the language. I mean, because these basics are missing at the end of the day. Once the basics are there, that's a different approach. Then you can really run through. But you need these basics. You need really, to do your homework, prepare for the people you want to communicate to, or your client wants to communicate to, and go accordingly and well prepared. And even if you say, okay, for a certain small group, you go in a huge step, but you still have everything prepared for the second level, third level, whoever is part of this group. And in general topics, I think this is, people get such a lot of information. I mean, all of us get too much information. We all select. But for some people, selecting is the problem. So you have to really kind of guide through these steps and communicate slowly. There's no other way. You cannot rush it if you really want people to understand and to talk about it.
Do you plan these small steps when you go into like into these negotiations? Is it something that you already do naturally, um, or you plan? So like, how is the process? It's important to identify which are the steps, or you just have the goal in mind, and you naturally through the negotiation find the steps and list them, or it's kind of a homework, like you said, it's a preparation. and you go to the negotiation knowing where to arrive, but the steps in between.
Yeah, normally you go into negotiations, you know where you want to get, and you know the time frame in most cases. If it's open talk, completely different scenario, but so you know the time frame, you know where you want to get, and then you plan the steps accordingly. And this is homework and experience. And also the people you work with, some of them are natural in communicating, good listeners, and some people you have to slow down and really do their work in listening to others and include this then in the preparation and the speeches and the op-eds and whatever framework you give. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Eveline, before I let you go, I have 3 rapid fire questions, a survey that
Okay.
I'm doing. Okay.
Go ahead.
So one is, which book you're reading right now?
Oh, I got a book, a gift actually, and it's a author from Munich, and a friend of mine gifted this book because this author from Munich writes a story about a teacher from Munich traveling to Istanbul. So said, okay, this is your book, and it's interesting. It's called Beck's Last Summer by Benedict Wells. Who I had not known this is rather well known in Munich at the moment. And it's about a teacher, young teacher, with a very gifted music student in his class. And the teacher, before becoming a teacher, was a musician himself. So he kind of becomes the manager of the students. And well, they suffer a bit on the tour to Istanbul, and lots of things happen. It's a very nice reading. It's a real autumn book actually. It's nice in all the tragedy.
Like you probably can connect with some of the adventures of the characters, having done this kind of trip yourself, right?
Yeah, well, they really go on a road trip. So I've never been really on a road trip from Munich to Istanbul, I have to admit. But through this book, I said we actually should do this. And just when it's a bit easier traveling, maybe next spring or next autumn,
Yes.
really go or by car, or I mean, there's no train, unfortunately. This would be the perfect solution, but go on a bit on a trip and not fly for once. So this is, and then I have a list of other books that they're with me, but I still didn't start reading. It's one of Joe Nesbo and one of Philip Bloom. It's called The Italian Travel, which I'm also looking forward. It's him discovering some parts of art history through his violin, which he found out was built in a certain part of Italy, and then he goes on the trip to discover who really did it, and who were the neighbors, and who were the friends, and what time was it, and what's going on. So I'm looking forward to this also. Now it's getting a bit colder and grayer and longer nights, so it's nice to have books at home.
Yes, very nice. The second question is, do you take long or short lunch breaks?
Oh, this depends a lot. So on a normal day, when I'm not having any lunch meetings or lunch encounters with friends and family, I normally have breakfast in my lunchtime, because I'm in the mornings I only have coffee. So lunchtime is my normal breakfast time. And it's not the longest. I love long dinners. I'm a dinner person.
Okay,
So.
interesting. And the last question is Bitcoin. Are you a believer or a non-believer?
Oh, difficult question. I'm a believer of let's say, the alternative system. I'm not sure it's really Bitcoin, but the whole movement around it. I mean, it's if you think, we had Ethereum coming up, the whole NFT story again with a bit of the arts background, musicians background. I think this, what they did in the paths they opened, it's very interesting, and this I am a believer in this. Yeah.
Do you own any cryptocurrency or NFTs?
I do, yes.
This is a good indicator of belief.
Well, sometimes, you also just have to try, I think. As we said, stay positive and see where it leads. And, before saying, no, 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 I don't want this, go and try. And I think it's a very interesting environment. It's, and lots of dots connecting at the moment. You see this also in some other environments. When I started working, with the football, soccer teams, players, managers, I had no clue, but now it all connects also through these gaming possibilities, through lots of players investing in IT companies, young IT companies. So it's really all leading together. And then we have some really great sports journalists in Germany. Some of them had been war journalists beforehand, so some of them have been to Iraq, Afghanistan. So if you talk to them, reason obvious being the sports, but they have been everywhere. They know every step and political background, and it's amazing. It's great, and I think this is one of the great things about our world, that at the end of the day it all comes back together again. And it's the same now with Bitcoin, and I'm very positive about these developments. I'm not sure, like El Salvador, if you have a country in that kind of condition, that this is the best step to do, but at least people now know where El Salvador is. So this might already have proven a point.
Yes.
So interesting.
Well, Bitcoin is one of the reasons I'm so positive about the future. It's,
Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's, from a theoretical point of view, it could solve so many of the basic problems in which a lot of other problems derivate, like from these basic problems. And I'm of course very curious, but very optimistic. It's one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic. Eveline, thank you so much for doing this, and we have to do it sometime soon again.
Would love to. Thanks for inviting, Mauro.
Yeah,
Great
let's try
talking
to
to
do
you.
it in person, because it's so
Yes.
much more fun.
Yeah, maybe Malaga next time again.
Yes.
Yeah, or we'll see some nice place.
Yes.